pop those drinks. It's time for Sports Around the Bar. Hey guys, welcome into Sports Around the Bar, your weekly sports talk show. As always, I am Jake, your bartender, and I'm joined on center stool by Drew. And Drew, we have a lot going on today, man. Kevin Durant sign and trade potentially in the works. Not to mention the NBA draft last night. We have the Rays changing cities, kind of, in baseball. And then we also are going to talk about the Baltimore Ravens and their 2019 season. So we've got a lot to go through. I hope you're ready for it.
Well, I am. I'm completely ready.
Sports talk.
You know, just because I feel the urge, I think we should start on the Rays and what they think they're going to do with splitting time between Tampa Bay and Montreal.
I agree, man. It's an interesting thing. I'm not crazy about it. I'm not going to lie to you. When I heard this, I said, then just move the team. If you're only selling half of your tickets, move the team. I get it. They're doing really well right now, and they're only selling about 5,000 seats out a night. If it's not good enough, figure out a way to sell tickets in Tampa Bay or don't be in Tampa Bay. I mean, they talked about coming to Nashville a couple years ago. They've talked about going to other cities. Now they're talking about, this might be even a test phase for Montreal, saying, can we get Montreal back? Figure it out. I don't want to see split stuff like this because it does start to impact the game. When you're talking about these guys traveling for 3/4 of their games now, where they're going to have to be on the road to go play home games up in Montreal, and we're not talking about next door. This isn't a Buffalo playing in Canada kind of thing where you're just crossing the river and you're playing on the other side of the border. You're traveling hundreds and thousands of miles to go play home games in Canada. It's insane how far they have to travel for this.
Yeah, man. Well, let's be completely honest. How good are the Rays going to be this year if they play all their games in Tampa Bay?
Well, I'm hoping they hold off into this until next year. If they do decide to put it into this year as well, and they start moving it around, they're already leading the division, or they were at one point. I don't think they're on top anymore. But the Yankees are good. The Red Sox are presumably going to come back at some point. I mean, but we're almost halfway through the season, Drew, and they're making a push. They're in the running.
I get it.
If you add it to the season, that would totally need.
But after you get the All-Star break, things change. The Yankees are going to be full-blown healthy. The Red Sox, at some point in time, are going to turn their season around and do a lot better. That's just what they've done historically.
We're halfway. I just need one more half. They already did it for the first half.
I get it. And a lot of teams don't look great and get better, and some look great and look worse. It happens all the time. I'm a little bit out on a different branch here when I talk about this thing. Honestly, I think what the Tampa Bay Rays need to do is they need to go out and give tickets away to these young fans. Go to churches, schools, orphanages, get built small to become big later on. Because one thing that Tampa Bay has going against them is that they're a military city. They have a lot of people that come in there and live there, and they are fans somewhere else, and that's the reason why they're having issues selling tickets. The same thing with the Buccaneers. And I get this is not a quick. It doesn't fix it next year. It doesn't fix it 3 years from now. But I think it can fix it 5 to 10 to 15 years down the road. You got to start building a fan base somewhere.
And Michael's all in on the Red Sox. Well, good news. One of your team's divisional rivals just got kneecapped because they're going to make a bad decision to go travel for 3/4 of the season instead of the half that everybody else has to. I get what you're saying about going grassroots and trying to build a franchise and build up a new fan base. But first off, that's long term. That doesn't pay the bills in the short term. And if you want a new stadium and you can't convince Tampa Bay to, you might as well just move the team. On top of it, there's no telling how many of these 5,000 tickets they're selling every night. They're not already doing that.
Yeah,
so, I mean, if they're saying 5,000 people show up, that doesn't mean they're selling 5,000 tickets. So,
they're going to do the same thing in Montreal. They're not going to be able to just go there and everyone becomes Ray fans.
No, they're not. But hopefully, since it was a baseball city, and I understand the thought process here. I don't agree with the move, but I understand the thought process. Used to be a baseball city. We took the team away. They're now the Nationals. They're going to be excited to see baseball come back, and they're going to come buy some tickets. Maybe that helps you in the short term because you're able to raise more capital. You can buy some more free agents because the team's making more money, but you're not competing. You just have the misfortune of playing in the same division as the Boston Red Sox and the Yankees, who both historically spend more than, they're two of the top 5 teams in spending almost every year.
Yeah, it's unfortunate for them, and it's fortunate for me being a Yankees fan. Michael, your Red Sox will lose this year. I said it. Deal with it.
Yeah, to the Rays.
No, I got no issue with the move. I honestly don't. I really, if we're just talking about the game of baseball, what they need to do is they need to go out and reach out to young fans and create just a nostalgia of that was my first professional game I've ever gone to. I got free tickets to go see the Rays or the Orioles or the Royals, whoever it is, because that stuff sticks in you. As a young kid, I had a chance to walk into the Chiefs Stadium and their locker room, and it has stuck with me ever since. I've been a Chiefs fan, struggling through the years of never winning anything important. It does stick with you, and I think baseball is a failing sport, especially when you look at the strides that hockey has taken this year. You need to create something smaller and younger to move forward, and if you're not going to adapt to the changing of times, then you need to create a young fan base.
And not to go too far off topic, but I think you're absolutely right. But I think baseball has a bit of an old blood problem where the people in charge are people that have been around the game their entire lives. They're all old men. They're not really adapting to their situations. They're saying, this is the way we've always done things in baseball. This is the way we'll keep doing things in baseball. The problem is 2019 isn't 1989. There are so many other things you could be doing with your time, especially with the advent of the internet. You have so many other options that it's impossible to sit there and lure somebody for 4.5 hours to go watch a baseball game on a Tuesday afternoon and to skip work. You just have to come up with something. Either cut the season down or do like they're trying in the minors and introduce a pitch count so you can get some of these games down into the 3-hour mark instead of the 4.5. I mean, baseball, to me, has to make a lot of hard choices here going forward, or we're going to see sports that are faster, like hockey and basketball, kind of gain on them, and eventually this isn't going to be the third sport in America anymore. I mean, gone are the days where this is America's pastime.
Right. Dylan says that would be a smart move to giving out tickets, man. I'm right there with you.
This was your idea, of course.
Yeah,
you're right.
I mean, it is a smart move. That's what you do. Because when someone's like, man, that was a blast, I want to come back, guess what the next time they do? They're buying tickets to go.
And I understand that. And the only thing I'll say is we don't know how much of that they're already doing. They say 5,000 people show up, and what if 2,000 of those are, like you said, they're giving these tickets out?
Give the other 5,000 tickets away.
Well, I'm sure they're trying, but there's only so many people.
They're gonna buy concessions. They're gonna buy memorabilia. They're gonna create a fan of the Rays because of them being there.
But does it devalue your product? At some point, if you're like, it's free, and then next year they're going to be asking me $40 or $50 a ticket,
that's
why would
where
I pay
you
for it?
give free to the children.
Oh, so it's free for the kids, and then parents pay and everything, or maybe you give the parents a discount,
as a father,
family night, and
if my daughter has an opportunity to go do something that's free for her, that would normally cost me money, it would make me end up spending money so I could be with my daughter. Absolutely give it to the children.
Well, it's something to think about. Honestly, this has been an ongoing theme for Tampa Bay, and I'm sure they've explored it, and who knows? Like I said, they're probably employing a lot of these tactics already, and we're still seeing these terrible attendance records. So we'll see.
It is terrible. There's no doubt about it. Devin says he likes the move. It brings a lot of teams to a new city. I'm there with you as well, man. Like I said, I'm not against Montreal getting another MLB team by any means.
Right.
I to be honest, we live in Nashville. I wish that we would have got a professional team. Instead, we got a AAA team. So
exactly. I mean, all because they didn't want to change the blueprints for a new stadium they were building. That's fantastic. Otherwise, Tampa Bay wouldn't have these problems because you just come down to Nashville where everyone wants to go do everything every night. So
every night.
Exactly. Look, I look at this. One final thought here before we move on, Drew, because I don't want to spend all day talking about the Rays.
Yeah.
Does it cheapen the legacy? Let's say the Rays go on and win a World Series, and you're splitting time in between both Montreal and Tampa Bay. As a Tampa Bay fan, do you feel a little cheated on that? Because we maybe won, but is it our victory? How much of it's that home body, this is my team, I live in this area, we just won a World Series. Does that cheapen that at all?
No.
What about for Montreal? Did you win a World Series?
No.
Did your team win a World Series? Because they played half the season there.
Well, you're a little bit different than me, but as a Chiefs fan, I never lived in Kansas City.
Right.
I became a Chiefs fan because I was born in Kansas, and that was our professional NFL team. And so when they win a championship, it's not Kansas City, the city, winning. It's my Chiefs football team winning a Super Bowl. Right. So, no, I don't think it does.
Oh, well, I think it does a little bit. Again, you can't call yourself the Tampa Bay Devil Rays, or I guess it's just Rays now. You can't call yourself the Tampa Bay Devil Rays if you're playing in Montreal, in my opinion. I think it does kind of cheapen the legacy a little bit because you can't sit there and say Tampa won a World Series here because it's not just Tampa.
No,
it's Tampa and Montreal.
Tampa Bay Rays. It's the Rays won it.
The Rays won it, but they're not the Tampa Bay Rays. And if I live in Tampa Bay,
it's the TBM.
Or if I live in Montreal,
it's the TBM-M Rays that win.
Yeah,
the World
exactly.
Series.
The X-Rays, right?
Dylan says Nashville and Oklahoma State definitely deserve a major league teams. Look at what the Thunder brought to Oklahoma.
I agree. I think those would be two good markets. I think that baseball should be looking to go other places where there's not all major league teams. Like, what about Omaha? What about Boise? Go out to Idaho or something like that. Go to some of these bigger cities that, even though you're not going to a major market, you're going to be the only show in town. You want to sell tickets. What else is there to do in Boise besides watch the corn grow, right, Drew? I mean,
you ride your horse.
Exactly. Ride your horse to the game. Because now you got something going on Tuesday night.
They're going to be the first major league to have stalls.
Yeah, exactly. Perfect. The Boise State, or the Boise, whatever. I don't know. A horse something. Work with that. Help me out here. I'm trying to figure this out for
Boise
him.
State Nares?
This is why I don't work for the MLB. But my point with being here, you don't have to go to a major city. It doesn't have to always be places like hockey moving to Seattle where you've got 3 or 4 other franchises to compete with. Go somewhere where nobody else is. Go to Portland. Even though they have basketball, there's not a lot of other sports out there in Portland. I'm sure that city's large enough to sit there and sell enough tickets to get baseball seats, or, get the asses in seats, as they say.
Mike is saying that he has never lived in Indianapolis, but he's a Colts fan. I mean, that's kind of what I was getting at, where it doesn't matter what city your team is. When you become a fan of that team, if the Rays won a World Series, the Rays won it. Tampa Bay didn't.
Would you feel the same way if you're like Buffalo?
Let me rephrase this, because the city flourishes. They get money. They become more richer because of a team that wins a World Series or a championship.
Devin says he's offended. He lives in Boise. But Devin, obviously you got nothing going on. You're here listening to us on a Friday night. So you're proving my point here. I'm kidding, but it doesn't have to
Devin,
just be Boise.
Exactly how many horses do you own?
The other thing I want to know is, wouldn't you rather have a major team out there that you could actually go support out there in a place like Boise that, yeah, you've got Boise State to play college football, but beyond that, there's not a lot going on? I mean, everywhere's got college football.
Right.
So I think that's, if I'm Major League Baseball, instead of going into these other markets that some more popular sports run, like the NBA and the NFL at this point, I'd be trying to set up shop somewhere that is a big city, but is still kind of separated enough that I can be the big dog in town. Well, Devin's saying they do have a minor league team. I'm just saying that should be a major league team. Just like us in Nashville. All we have is AAA, but the city would absolutely rally behind another team, even though we have some other stuff going on.
I mean, I grew up in Colorado Springs, an hour away from Denver, and I was never a Broncos fan, and I wish that Colorado Springs would have had a major league team there.
Absolutely.
And Devin has 2 horses.
Okay, yeah. Perfect. See? We called it. We just called it.
Yeah.
All the stereotypes are playing out. All right, we'll move forward. Let's talk about a Kevin Durant sign and trade potential scenario going on here. If you haven't heard, the Warriors are considering doing a potential sign, rehab, and then trade of Kevin Durant. That's going to allot Kevin Durant the new maximum of, $227 or $221 million over 5 years, Drew. It's going to earn him a potential $57 million more than if he hits free agency and just moves on to another team. Is this the right move for the Warriors to do a sign and trade? Is it the right move for Kevin Durant? Who wins in this scenario?
I think both. I think it's the team that decided to pick up Kevin Durant that loses.
I agree.
Anything that you can get, if Kevin Durant is not the future of your organization and trading him, and you get a little bit back from him of trading him off, that it's worth everything you did. He's obviously given you a championship. He's obviously one of the greats to ever play the game. He got to wear your uniform. But if he's not going to stay there, this is great for them. And then when you look at the Durant part of it, more money? Yeah. Sign away.
Well, Durant's kind of a double-edged sword, and let me tell you why. Because you look at Kevin Durant, yes, it's $57 million that otherwise you would leave on the table. It's an extra year of guarantee that being 31 now and coming off a major Achilles injury, that's a lot of guarantees. Whatever team picks you up, they're going to have you till you're 36. The problem with it, they're going to be trading assets away from the team that you're going to be trying to win a championship with, right? If I'm Kevin Durant, at least in my mind, whether this is true or not, I'm thinking whatever team I go to will be a contender. And as a contender, you need to hang on to these role players. You need to hang on to these guys who come off the bench. You need to hang on to these draft picks so that 2, 3, 4 years from now, we're still contending for championships instead of falling off. So while you get more money, which also puts more of a burden on the team that you're going to, and they're not going to be able to draw in as many players, you're also kind of sucking assets out of the team that you're going to be trying to win with. So do you sit there and take the money at 31, like Kevin Durant is, and just take the payday and say, I'm going to be good enough to carry it? Or would you sit there and tell the Golden State Warriors, you're not getting anything from me. I'm going to hit free agency, and I'm going to go sign with the team, make a max contract, and they're not going to have to give anything up to get me on that squad. Dylan says Durant to New Orleans. If you look at that young roster and that young core, I might think about it. How fun would that be watching him play next to Zion?
It'd be nuts. You have a valid point. There's no doubt about it. When you bring in Durant and you give assets away to make your team less valuable and possibly not win a championship, I get it, but Durant brings so much more to the table. We're talking top 10 best player of all time to play the game, available to become part of your organization, wear your uniform, and play in front of your fans in your city.
And this will go back to the Chris Paul thing. I'll talk about that in just a second. Dylan says, obviously, he wants him in New Orleans. I'd like to see that, too. Ian's saying he's going to the Clippers. But I think they have their eyes and their hearts set on Kawhi Leonard. I'm not 100% sure that they're going to go after Kevin Durant at all. Would you want to wait another year as the Clippers, or do you want to go get that guy now who you're probably more likely to lure in Kawhi Leonard? Because if you do trade for Durant, even if you traded for him right now or if you signed him, he's missing pretty much all of 2019 unless he makes a miraculous comeback. As the Clippers, is that the right move, or would you just put all your eggs into the basket of we're going to lure Kawhi Leonard to come back and play in California? Also, Will, good to see you, man. And he's saying Durant ends up in Dallas. Do you see him as a Maverick? Playing with Porzingis, I mean, that'd be a good power forward you got there.
Yeah.
Not to mention Luka Doncic.
Yeah, it would be great. Do I see it happening? No.
I'm kind of with you. I don't know that Mark Cuban's going to have what it takes to lure him in there. Also, Michael would say that'd be awesome, but his team is the Warriors. I agree, and if you're a Warriors fan, if you're not going to keep Kevin Durant, you want the sign and trade because this guy's leaving anyway. You might as well go get something out of him because all that money, as soon as you trade him, goes right off your books and on to somebody else. My point here with this trade that I want to get to is we saw the similar situation with Chris Paul, where he did a sign and trade with the Clippers. They gave him that max contract. His skill fell off. He didn't have the injury, but his skill fell off, and now the Warriors are wanting to trade somebody that they're tied to for the next 3 years. They're going to be paying him $47 million. The same thing could potentially happen to Kevin Durant, especially because that first year you're going to pay him to rehab.
Right. And there's obviously something going on with him because he was not fully healthy. And I get why he went out on the court. I get why he wants to play for his team. It makes absolute sense. I mean, you're talking about a championship. It's worth trying to be out there and doing it. But, first major move on that leg, it popped. And he's not young. He's not in his 20s. So for a team to give this up, to get a big contract like that, it is scary. But what Kevin Durant has over Chris Paul's never been a shooter. Yeah, he has done it, but that's not what he was about. He's about quick moves, a quick pass off, or move into the middle, put a layup, get fouled, whatever, and go to the free throw line. Durant has a shot. Luckily for him, some of his game could slow down a little bit, but that release, that shot that he has, could be relevant for a long period of time in his career.
As long as he stays healthy.
Right.
If the injuries mount and you tied yourself to a
$45
million player.
Was you don't have to take all those quick movements if you're not the one
right.
bringing the ball down the court and having to do it.
Right, and I agree with that. But again, you're picking him up at 31, and you're going to get another 5-year contract. So we're talking about, again, the same situation. He's 34. He's not the same player. If something happens where he's much more easy to guard towards the end of this career, you're going to be paying on a contract that's not contributing, and it can sink your franchise.
How easy is it to guard a 7-foot 3-point shooter?
It's not.
Okay.
But again, guys can do it. What happens if he loses his speed and he can't move around on the court very well? He turns into Kyle Korver, where he can't move. And yeah, if he's open, that's great. But Kevin Durant. You're not going to leave him open.
He would sell tickets.
And he'd sell tickets, but he's not going to win you a championship. And guess how you keep your job as a GM? You don't sell tickets, you win a championship.
Culver has a couple of them.
Yeah, but he went to the Cavs, and they didn't win because they had Kyle Korver.
Hold on.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm just kidding.
All right, Drew, well, let's move on and talk about the NBA draft here really quick. What was your biggest kind of takeaway from the NBA draft last night? Did you enjoy what you saw? Was there something missing? What would you rather them fix?
Well, you're pushing me in the direction of saying
something was wrong. Yeah.
Did
you enjoy the entire thing?
I enjoyed
Start to finish, the whole thing.
I enjoyed some of it. There's
Okay.
no doubt about it. I love seeing players that have earned the right to go to teams in high positions like R.J. Barrett going to the Knicks. The Knicks need a lot of fixing to do, but R.J. Barrett has earned his right to be one of the top players in this draft. Zion Williams is all the hype around him. You know, he deserves to be a number one because of the hype he created. Do I know if that's what's going to pan out to be one of the best players in this draft? I don't know. I don't have a magic ball. I wish I did. If historically looking at it, when you have that much hype, you never live up to that much hype. You might just be a shy bit of it, or you're way off from that hype. I think when I look at this whole entire thing, the number one thing the NBA did wrong was no player who is being drafted from another team should wear another team's hat coming onto that stage. To me, that's something the NBA needs to fix literally next year. There should be no hesitation in it. If these trades have already happened, even though I would rather see it be the opposite where the Hawks drafted somebody and
Too many birds in Atlanta.
Yeah, no, and they draft somebody and that trade falls through. I'd rather see him in a Hawks hat than the Lakers hat prior to that. You know, that's just something. The mistake happened. The trade fell through. Whatever. We move forward from it. But now, for his legacy moving forward, and I keep on forgetting this young man's name, he came into the NBA wearing a Lakers hat.
I agree. Hunter is what you're talking about.
Hunter, that's right.
Yeah. Look, I'm totally in agreement with you. This is ridiculous that your team, that this may be your franchise's next great, entirely long franchise player that never leaves. You know, he turns into the next LeBron James, and everybody's talking about him forever. And you're going to go back and look back at the draft and everything like that, and he's going to be wearing a Lakers hat when he's drafted? No, I mean, that's dumb. You've already made the trade. It's pretty much finalized. You never see teams back out of these things because when they do, nobody ever wants to trade with them again. This is a done deal. Even though the league year hasn't started yet, which how you're having a draft before the league year starts is beyond me. It's ridiculous. My other pet peeve, and I've always had this with basketball, is why are you having your draft before you do free agency? You're going to go draft a small forward with pick 22, and then you're going to go sign Kawhi Leonard 3 weeks later and ruin this man's career? I mean, he just went from playing 28 minutes to playing 10 because you signed a superstar. That's absolutely ridiculous. There's no reason to me that free agency should come before the draft. I think the NFL has the right model. You do free agency first, and then that way you know going into the draft, okay, here's what I need. Here are the positions where young guys are going to significantly get roles on my team. The NBA doesn't do it that way. Instead, you're going to go draft these guys. You're not going to know how good they are because they're not NBA players, and then you're going to go to free agency, and if you lure somebody in that spot, I guess the draft doesn't mean anything. I guess he turns into a role player or a bench player, and you can totally stun a guy's growth because he's not playing enough.
Agreed. Ian, I'm sorry we're making you thirsty, man, but this is what Sports Around the Bar is. It's about drinking beer.
Let's go round two, Drew, if you're ready.
It's about drinking beer and, hitting that little quench for you, man.
Exactly. It's Fridays. Have a good time, Ian. Come on.
Michael says the Knicks need a whole new team, man. You're absolutely right. It kind of cracked me up when they were drafting R.J. Barrett. ESPN's little what the team needs is it literally said
everything.
Starters, bench. There's no doubt about it. But you know what, though? R.J. Barrett, I think he's going to be phenomenal for the Knicks. I think he's going to be exactly what they need. Is he the next superstar? I don't know.
He could be. He shoots really well. Let's not forget, he had one of the highest shooting percentages out of a freshman ever.
Actually, he has the highest points per game average ever for a freshman in the
guy
ACC.
can score. Did he benefit from playing with Zion? Of course he did. But he's not going to have that benefit now. We're going to get to see if he can step up his game in New York. Maybe they land a superstar or two.
I hope they did, man.
They need to.
It's literally what they need.
I would have liked to see Porzingis there playing with him too, but it's bygones. It's water under the bridge at this point. The Knicks are absolutely one of the teams in basketball that should be embarrassed the way these last 30, 40 years have gone, and then this team looks as bad as it does.
They trade away young talent to move on to like a veteran or whatever. It's ridiculous.
Or you just bet the farm on Carmelo Anthony, and then,
right.
Well, we all know how that ended.
Ian says Kobe came in wearing a Hornets hat if he is correct.
It's a shame. It is. There is no reason that he should not be wearing the hat of whatever team he's going to play for. And it's every guy. You don't want to go in there wearing a hat for a team you're never going to see and wants nothing to do with you. It's shameful. It's the NBA to me is just it's backwards. It's 100% backwards. Have your free agency, then do your draft. I get it. You don't want to run into the NFL at all because that's the 800-pound gorilla in the room that you want to avoid totally. You want to do this in June and July when nothing else is going on. So flip the script. After the finals, have a 2-week rest period, start the new year for the league, do free agency, and then draft in mid or late July, and you're good.
It would not hurt NBA by any means to push their season back a month. It would not hurt them by any means. They wouldn't be facing the NHL. NFL would be completely done. Training camp, all that stuff. Beyond people like us who enjoy the NFL, none of that stuff means anything. People just want to watch sports and competitive sports on TV. If they just push themselves back a month, they would be irrelevant a lot more than what they are here. They're creating a market where they're facing everything else that's coming at them. The draft, the MLB season started, and the NHL playoffs. I mean, one of those sports need to push back a month, at least in my opinion.
Speaking of sports that need to push it back a month, did you know the NHL draft is tonight? It is. Why would you do it the night after basketball on a Friday night when everyone's out doing something? I don't want to harp on the NHL too much because this is dumb. I mean, half of these players aren't going to ever even play for the team that they get drafted by, but why would you put your draft one day after the NBA and then put it on a Friday where everyone's going out to do stuff instead of sitting at home watching a 48-round draft that you're never going to know who these guys are, maybe beyond your first round pick?
It's a huge reason why the NFL starts their draft on a Thursday.
Precisely, because they want you there watching it, and the NFL is big enough to know that if they put it on Saturday at 2 a.m., there would be a lot of guys sitting there watching it. The NHL doesn't have that clout. They need to learn their lesson as well and say, we need to know...
We're those idiots.
Well, yeah, we would be there.
We were there.
No, I'm saying if it started at 2 a.m. on a Saturday, we would be there. The NHL doesn't have the same kind of pull. So why are you are you starting one day after the NBA just had all this hype and everything else, and then you're going to go put it on a Friday? This needs to be 2 weeks from now on a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday when people are at home with nothing else going on. So that way you can get excited about what your hockey team is going to do and not be talking about Zion Williamson going to the Pelicans. Give that news some time to die down.
Yeah, agreed.
Why am I not a commissioner for one of these sports here, Drew?
I just want the contract and the money that they got.
I'll do the job.
I can come up with a lot of crazy ideas that are a lot better than theirs.
I'm going to get on the phone with Adam Silver after we're done here.
You have his number?
I do. He's not going to listen to me, but I'm going to get on the phone with him. All right, moving forward. Obviously, we've got a lot else to talk about. We're going to talk about the Baltimore Ravens next and their 2019 season. I think the NBA draft was okay, but the problem is when you compare it to the NFL, if you ever want to catch them, they're going to have to do better. I want to see more events. I want to see more hype. I want to see more, not artificially generated hype, but I want to see more just pomp with the thing. I mean, even you watch the if you watch the broadcast, it was not very exciting. They were like, "Oh, Zion goes first," and then after that, they're like, "Huh, John Morant, never heard him before. He's going to Memphis, whatever."
It's huge for Memphis, by the way.
It is. I mean, I'm glad for Memphis, but they're still not going to be good.
Ian says, "Why is the NHL the number third in sports and popularity?"
Because it's faster and more exciting than baseball. It's probably not there. Baseball even beats basketball in the markets that it's in. Ratings-wise, baseball does better than the NBA in the markets where baseball plays. But when you look at the NHL, they are what you want to see. It's a fast sport. There's hits. There's some violence to it that gets people watching it. I'm with you, but you don't put your draft one day after another one for no reason. You have the entire summer where the NFL's not doing anything. Pick another day.
I'm trying not to get too much into this, but I've really thought about this for a long time, and I'll give you two reasons. The first reason is, and I think this is the biggest reason why, is the fact you can't see this player's face. It's been a huge reason why a lot of these players don't wear masks, because it doesn't get you a personal experience with this guy. You see a uniform and a number, and it doesn't bring anyone in where it's like you feel like you're part of that guy. It just doesn't. NBA, you see the whole entire person. You see the reaction of that person. It's a little bit different. And
can I counterpoint before you go into the second one?
By all means, go for it.
The NFL does the same thing.
They're
wearing helmets.
I knew you were going to say that, and I'll tell you the reason why it's not is, and this is my opinion about that, and this is exactly what my second point is. When you look at the NFL and you look at these players that are playing, you're looking at people like Tom Brady, Patrick Mahomes, even more of a difficult name, Le'Veon Bell. You go and pull yourself into a hockey scenario, and you pull some of those players, Alex Ovechkin.
More of them are European, and maybe it doesn't have the same pull.
And when you're
in the
talking
United
about
States.
the United States popularity poll, these names are difficult to talk about. They are, and I'll be the first one to admit it. When I sit there and I'm trying to become a hockey fan, which is the last couple of years of my life, it's been really difficult for me to sit there and enjoy it because I'm like, oh, I like that player.
Matthias Ekholm doesn't do it for you.
What's his name? And I'm like, number 23.
Bjorn Bjorgensen.
Exactly. And I don't know if that's the reason or not, but in my opinion, that's what it is. These names are like home names. They don't get you excited. Tom Brady is such a simple name, and he's one of the best players to ever play.
I have another point here for you. The short ice time. Even your best players will play for 30 to 45 to a minute at most, and then go switch out with somebody else. There's 4 lines in hockey. Your superstars are not on the ice, I should say, at this point, for the entire game. And that's just the nature of the sport a little bit. You can't play that. Nobody can play 100% in hockey for more than 5 or 6 minutes at a time. They come off the ice dead. Football, you're going to see Tom Brady for every offensive possession. When the quarterback's out, you're like, man, what's going on? Where's my guy? You know, or whoever your quarterback is. Patrick Mahomes goes out, and you're like, man, what happened to Mahomes? Something's wrong. Hockey, Sidney Crosby may be on the ice for 60 seconds, and then he's gone. It may be 45. It may be 30, and then they do a quick line change, and you just don't see him as much. There's so much more rotation, so many other guys in hockey. I think that is what I agree with you, Michael. Tom Brady is lame. Aren't you the Boston fan, though? Where's this coming from?
It's just a simple name, man. That's why I brought it up.
But, Ian, as to why hockey is third in sports, I think it's still faster than baseball. I think as we move forward, right now it's 4 in American sports. When you look at viewership and everything, right now it's 4th. As we go forward with the speed of the game, with the hits and everything, I think eventually it's going to overtake a game like baseball that seems to want to take 4.5 hours every time you play.
And in my opinion, it should be number 2. It's way more an exciting game than the NBA is right now. When the NBA is sitting there making super teams, I think hockey should be number 2. I honestly do.
Even beyond that, hockey, you can be as good as you want. Anyone can beat you on any given night. You can get a little bit of puck luck going against you. There's so much parity in the league. The NBA, 90% of the time, you know who's going to win before you go into the game.
Look at the Hurricanes.
Exactly. Great point. All right, let's talk about the Baltimore Ravens. Are you ready?
What's going on, Sean?
Absolutely. Good to see you, Sean. We're going to talk about the Baltimore Ravens and their 2019 season coming up here, Drew. This team that when I looked at it and I saw they were 9th in offense last year, I was like, how?
Rushing.
How? Yeah, I know, but I was like, I don't get it.
This team definitely statistically has put up plenty of reasons to sit there and be excited about the 2019 season. Coming off a 10-6 season, it's exciting for anyone who is a Baltimore Ravens fan. But as much as I've hyped them and I said John Harbaugh could put a team together that everyone should be excited behind, when I look at all these losses during the offseason and what they added in, can I keep on saying that? Can I keep on saying I believe in Harbaugh? Can I keep on saying that I think that this guy could put a great team together?
From a yardage standpoint, this is the best defense last year. And what did we say last year, Drew? They've lost too many pieces. They're not going to be a good defense. And always happens? They're always put it together, and they're always a great defense. They were first in yardage, if you want to hang your hat on that. They were second in scoring, which to me is the more important stat here. They only allowed under 18 points, 17.9 per game. Second best, only behind the Chicago Bears. To me, it's the most important stat in the NFL is how many points do you give up and how many points do you score, because that's how you win games. The Ravens were great at it. They're going to be great at it in 2019. I don't know how yet, but they will be. Honestly, it'll be Jalen Ferguson rushing the quarterback. We'll talk about him in a minute, but I don't know why. You look at the turnover differential, you look at the way this team played, they should not have been as good as they are, and they're always up there.
Ian says, forget about the Ratbirds. Pittsburgh Steelers for life. Kings of the North. He says Baltimore will be third in the AFC North at best.
Well, at first we were saying that Baltimore was going to win the division. We had to pump the brakes a little bit. We already talked about the Browns. We're talking about the Ravens tonight. We will talk about the Steelers coming up as well. But we had a bit of a surprise. We went through the schedule, honestly.
The schedule's tough.
It is, but we'll talk about how that breaks out for him here in a minute.
And it's not even just the schedule's tough. It's the matchups that are tough in this schedule.
Thank you, Sean. We love you too, by the way. Going into this, Drew, really quick, defensively, they're all over the board, man. They're they're fifth in the passing game. They're fourth in the running game. They are a legit top defense. They lost a lot of guys. They lost C.J. Mosley, who to me is the quarterback of this defense, middle linebacker. If you're not aware, right. So Darius Smith coming off the edge is going to be a big loss. Eric Weddle, even though they replaced him with Earl Thomas, I think that's going to be important too. Losing him, they have so many losses in this. Terrell Suggs not coming back. This defense, is it still going to be a top 5 defense again for Baltimore? Because that's always our biggest harping point is they lose everybody and we're like, man, there's no way they come back, and then they do. We've said it for like 3 or 4 years now. We're like, the Ravens are done. Write them off.
It's hard because when you look at the ads they brought in, they bring in like a safety like Earl Thomas, which, even though he's a 30-year-old safety, this guy's one of the best safeties in the league. They bring in a young defensive end, maybe an outside linebacker, and Jalen Ferguson, which, they're pretty high about taking the 85th pick overall in the NFL draft. But I think it's because of players like, and I'm going to slaughter his last name, Matt Judon. Like, players like that where he had 7 sacks, 10 tackles for a loss, and 20 quarterback hits. That's what you want to see out of your starter. This guy was not a starter. He was a rotation piece.
And they are rolling the dice on some young guys coming in. And Shane Ray.
Exactly. And I think that's the reason why they're willing to let some of these guys go. But how many times can you let these veterans go and bring in pieces that are better?
If you're the Ravens forever, apparently. But I don't know. Maybe 2019 is a little bit different. I am worried about these losses. I think C.J. Mosley is the biggest one in the NFL. Him moving on and going to play... where is he playing now?
Jets.
For the Jets, thank you. Even though they paid him too much money, I think C.J. Mosley moving on is going to be a huge loss for the Ravens. Had a brain fart there.
And I'm actually, before you go on, I'm actually going to say a different person. I'm actually going to say Zadarius Smith. What I saw him do during all the games that I watched, the Ravens game, as I possibly can, because it's not local here, and when the Chiefs are playing, that's about all I pay attention to. This player, the Packers got as a great player. He creates a lot of disruption in the backfield.
Now, one thing I will say is they kind of went with that kind of discount feel for replacing these guys. They lost Darius Smith. They lost Terrell Suggs. They replaced him with Shane Ray and Parnell McPhee, who, to his credit, had a lot of success when he was with Baltimore the first time.
Right.
He left, didn't have so much success, came back now. They're going to have a lot going on with this offseason as to whether guys like Ray and McPhee can refine themselves and live up to their potential, because they're going to need it. They're going to need it on the edge. They're going to need it from these guys more importantly.
Ian says, do you think Jackson's actually going to hit any of the receivers this year? If he's not mistaken, most of his passes were to running backs. Do you think Jackson can actually throw past 15 yards? Before you answer that, I have one stat I want to throw to you, and I get that he was throwing to backs, if that was true, because honestly I don't have that in front of me. He actually had a higher quarterback rating out of Joe Flacco. And if one thing that we've been saying all last year was Joe Flacco had one of his best starts ever as a Raven quarterback.
But I will say this. They definitely did not ask him to do what they asked Joe Flacco to do. Joe Flacco was throwing down the field a lot more, which is why I think just because someone has a better number, and we look at QBR like it's, the holy grail of quarterback stats and everything. I don't think so. I think it can be a little deceptive. When you're only throwing out routes and you're only throwing short dump-off passes, it's easy to look good when you just let everybody else do everything. When you're asking for more complicated throws, deep passes down the field, more complicated routes, it can kind of skew those numbers. That's why I want to say, like you said, he beat Joe Flacco on QBR last year. That's why I'm saying it doesn't matter so much to me. Does it pass the eye test? When I watched Lamar Jackson play, it was all incredibly simple stuff, or it was throw the ball away, or more importantly, it was run. I mean, the guy had 150 rushes in 9 games. So at this point,
143.
The Ravens are going to be a wildcat offense.
7 too many.
Exactly. At this point, the Ravens are a wildcat offense. Going back to Ian's point, do I think he's actually going to hit any receivers? They must. The Ravens must think he's going to throw more, because they spent 2 of their top 3 picks on wide receivers. They took Marquise Brown, small, fast, dynamic wide receiver, not the guy that I would go with if I'm going to go draft a wide receiver for my quarterback who can't hit the broadside of a barn. That's the guy you go when you have a quarterback who can hit him in stride, like an Aaron Rodgers. They could have gone Arcega-Whiteside if they were that worried about his passing. Obviously, they believe in this guy developing.
Well, they did lose their number 2 and number 3 targets. They lost. Michael Crabtree and John Brown. I guess that's what happened when you drink beer. You burp a little bit. Anyways, they lost those guys during the offseason. They have moved on. And I get that Marquise Brown and Miles Boykin doesn't necessarily excite you when
Marquise Brown excites me. When they took him, I was like, "There's no way."
Well, I'm getting in the sense of what Lamar Jackson is. It doesn't excite you because they're not those players that you would think that someone who doesn't have a lot of accuracy should be throwing to.
I totally agree. Sean, we are not going to be live tomorrow, but we are live Monday, Wednesday, Friday during the off season. We switched it up for football season, but we'll let you know what's going on with that when we get a little bit closer.
I just want to end my comment here is when you look at Marquise Brown, the reason why they drafted him, yes, he's a much smaller target, but man, his speed is what is the reason he was so high on this draft. If they could give him like a quick little in and out route, this guy gets the ball in his hands. They're hoping he can break tackles, move forward, and that's where you get the yards and throw.
And when we saw this pick come through, and we were down there armpit to armpit with everybody down in Nashville for this draft last year.
I'm pretty sure some lady was holding me.
Yeah, I wish you would have helped me. Going back to this, Drew, what I told you is, like I said, they're going to use him like Tyreek Hill. They're going to do end arounds. They're going to do other stuff. Because you even said this doesn't fit. You're not throwing down the field. What is Marquise Brown doing on this team?
Right.
I was like, this is going to be their Tyreek Hill. They are going to try to get him involved in the game without having to throw him the ball 30 yards down the field. The question is going to be, are the Ravens going to be creative enough for it? Because you look at all these departures and you look at what they've brought in, they're going to absolutely have to lean on some of these rookies and some of these other young pass catchers to make an impact if they're going to have anything but a rushing game.
So let's go ahead and move on to their 2019 schedule. Just remind everyone, in 2018, this team was 10-6. I think it was a little bit higher than what we had it. I don't have it in front of me. I don't think we thought this team highly because we thought the losses in
I think we said 8-8 last year too.
What do you mean 2?
Well, I mean, like we said 8-8. We're like, this team's always 8-8, right?
Oh yeah, I guess.
Or we always pick 8-8, and then guess what happens? They always outperform.
I thought you were giving a spoiler.
No, we didn't say 8-8 again. I promise.
All right. Anyways, listen.
You'll agree with me.
Listen, we honestly had thought highly of this team during this offseason. We thought that this team going 10-6, going to the playoffs, playing such well, having the number one defense. We thought this team, regardless of the fact that Lamar Jackson can't throw the ball properly in the NFL, that this team is still going to be great, right? That's what we thought. But then we sit there and we put the schedule together, and it's not what they need to be another 10-16.
You're breaking Sharif's heart because he's in here now. And Sharif, I'm glad you joined at this point, man, because we are talking Ravens. We're talking Ravens, and it starts with the first 2 games. On the road at the Miami Dolphins, and then the Cardinals at home. These are 2 W's, right? Off the back, Drew. This needs to be wins for a team that wants to be in the playoffs. You can't drop these games when you've won the division like the Ravens did last year, and you have such a tough schedule going forward. You have to beat teams like Miami and Arizona.
We're not going to go too heavily into week 1 and week 2 because we've already done the Dolphins and Cardinals. If you guys want to see us get really heavy into those games, you can go back and look at those episodes.
Even more than that, they're not good teams. These are bad teams they're going up against.
Let's not say that now. Okay, we don't know what the Cardinals could do. The Dolphins? Okay, I'll agree with that one. Anyways, moving forward.
Well, the Cardinals weren't great last year.
Going into week 3, the Ravens are now 2-0. They're going on the road to face the NFC losers of championship game in the Kansas City Chiefs. And my hope, Super Bowl hopeful, this is a team that they have faced and they have lost. And yes, it was a very close game, but can they beat this team in Kansas City?
Well, Sharif sure as hell thinks so. He says the Chiefs will lose to us. He also said that they're going to the Super Bowl. They're going to win the Super Bowl. Not even going, but going to win. And also he says 10-6. I mean, we'll talk about that when we get to the end. Austin's saying it's a win-win. He's right there with us, man. I totally agree with you, Austin. You're right on track. They need to beat teams like the Dolphins and the Cardinals. When you look at the rest of the schedule, they're going to have to get it done the first couple weeks. And I think they're going to.
I think that
both of these coaches.
I think that Sharif just wants to irritate me.
Both of these teams have issues with coaches changing, with new schemes, everything else coming in the first weeks. You know what the Ravens have had in a while? A new head coach. And it always seems to work with Harbaugh. You're getting a veteran, arguably one of the longest tenured coaches. He might be the longest tenured now with Marvin Lewis gone.
Hold on, are we talking
in
about
the NFL?
Week 3 still?
No, we're talking about week 2 and 1. I want to finish that, and then I'll talk about week 3. I'll crap on the Chiefs in a second.
Okay, I appreciate that.
They've got to win weeks 1 and 2 because they're going to keep everything the same. Also, talking about the Chiefs, this is a road game, Sharif. Okay? Drew had to talk me into this one. I wanted to make this a Ravens win. so badly. But Drew talked me into the Chiefs winning this game. It's going to be difficult to keep up with them. You're changing pass rushers. The Chiefs have a great offensive line. More importantly, they have a great quarterback and a great passing game. The only way I see the Chiefs losing this is if you injure Kelsey and we're still not seeing Tyreek Hill play in this game. Because when you're one-dimensional, NFL teams, the good ones, have a way of taking that away, and I think the Chiefs won't be any different. Frank Clark is there now. He's going to be able to impact the running game a little bit more than we saw out of guys like Justin Houston and Dee Ford, who are more pass rushers than anything else. I like Justin Houston. Still not as good of an edge rusher, or from a rushing standpoint, than Frank Clark is at this point. The Chiefs are going to win this game. At home, it's going to be loud. You're asking Lamar Jackson to go make a bunch of spectacular passes because that's how you beat the Chiefs. I just don't see it. I really don't. I think they're going to struggle throwing the ball, even as bad as the Chiefs have been. Tyrann Mathieu in there. They've done it. They've done some stuff to change things up in the secondary. They've done stuff to change up the rest of this defense. Chiefs are going to win. I hate to say it, man. I want to see them win, but the Chiefs are going to win.
Shreve, 3 interceptions. You guys had us last year. I remember 0 interceptions, and I remember a loss. An L in your column.
It was close,
though. And a W.
You were sweating it out.
Yeah. And I didn't want to face them again.
And guess
but
what
it does
they'll do
not
in
matter.
week 3? They're going to sweat it out, but I think the Chiefs, with that passing game, with everything else going on in that offense, are just going to be too much, man. Maybe Tyreek Hill's not playing. We still don't have any kind of significant suspension yet.
Real quick, I just want to be completely honest. I think week 3 is too far in the schedule for the Ravens to come into Kansas City and beat them. If this was week 1 and the Ravens came into Kansas City, I think it's going to take a little bit for this defense to get cohesive and to understand how this all could be. I will give it, if this was week 1, I think the Ravens can win it.
Look, I love also, he says Sharif also said the best secondary in the league. I love Earl Thomas as much as the next guy. The Titans have a better secondary than the Ravens do.
Oh.
Logan Ryan, you're talking about Kevin Byard going in for the Titans. Adoree Jackson, first-round pick, stepping up into his own. You're also talking about guys like Kenny Vaccaro going in there. And the worst guy in our secondary is Malcolm Butler, okay? I mean, the Titans have a better secondary than the Ravens. Like you can't, if you can't beat the Titans, you can't say you're best in the league. That's all I can say. If you can't beat the Titans, you're not the best in the league.
Get up my grill, Sharif.
What? It's going to be a fun week.
You might be taller than me, but I'll give you one of these.
Well, okay, how much of the secondary plays in the offensive line? None of it, Sharif. So you can say 11 sacks all you want, okay? You say 11 sacks, that's great. It doesn't help you defend the pass. That's all I can say. I'm not saying that they don't have a better offensive line. You want to pick offensive lines? Yeah, I go Ravens.
You can pick on the Titans, but you can't pick on the Chiefs. We won. We beat
Hopefully
you.
they lose in week 3.
We beat the number 1 defense.
Hopefully the Ravens beat the Chiefs in week 3. But for right now, I'm with Drew. I got to put it down as a loss for him. I mean, there's no way I can sit there and point to it and say the Ravens, with a young quarterback that needs to attack them through the air, are going to beat a team like the Chiefs.
And Austin is with us. He's also saying that's a loss for the Ravens. In week 4, the Browns come into Baltimore, and I don't know if you guys watch our Browns episode, but this is a loss for the Browns.
Let's talk about the next 3 weeks. They have a big streak of in-division opponents here. They have the Browns, then they go on the road for the Steelers, and then they have the Bengals on top of it. You need to have a good streak here, but I see this as a win against the Browns. We think at home they're going to be too much for a team still trying to find itself, that even though we believe in their offensive talent, their offensive, maybe not scheme from an offensive coordinator standpoint with Tony Kitchens calling the offense, but we believe in them passing the ball with Landry and Odell Beckham. We believe the Browns are going to have a good offense, right?
Yeah, no.
Still probably not good enough to beat a defense like the Ravens have.
No, I'm right there with you. The Browns' run game alone will create enough offense. I'm a huge Baker Mayfield fan. I think you all know that at this point, regardless if it's Odell Beckham Jr., Jarvis Landry, and
this won't be a tie, Austin. I don't want to break your heart. This is not going to be a tie.
Other players can be contributing to this win for the Browns. But going into week 5, when they go into the Steelers, I actually think this is a team that might have the kryptonite for the Baltimore Ravens.
Ian's saying 0-3 through that group. Through the Browns, Steelers, and then Bengals on top of it. 0-3 for it. Look, they're not losing well, I shouldn't say that because they lost to the Bengals last year, and this team looks very much the same. But I don't think they're losing to the Ravens. Or I don't think they're losing to the Bengals. I think the Ravens are going to be able to play bully ball against them. I mean, we can talk about the Steelers here too, but especially against the Ravens, not to get ahead of ourselves, but I think they're going to play bully ball against one of the worst defenses in the NFL. You're going to see Mark Ingram put up 180 yards on the ground, 2 touchdowns, and you're like, man, Mark Ingram's a great running back. What were the Saints thinking? It's because he's playing the Bengals. They're not stopping the run at all. Okay, and guess what the Ravens want to do? Run the football. So,
and Sharif is saying Ian's high.
You got to remember, Sharif, Ian's a Steelers fan as well. So, I do like the clash in the comments a little bit. So let us know kind of these different perspectives. I want to see both sides of the coin. I'm not personally invested. I'm a Titans fan. So they can both lose for all I care.
So we just want to remind you guys that week 4, week 5, and week 6 at this point in time, the Browns at home, away with the Steelers, and Bengals at home. We actually see this as a 2-1 little run where they beat the Browns, they beat the Bengals, but they lose the Steelers. And I'll sit there and tell you why I think they're going to lose to the Steelers. I think they have the kryptonite for what the Browns are. And I know it sounds ridiculous. The defense the Steelers have doesn't scare anybody. But when you have Ben Roethlisberger back there, regardless if he's lost a lot of weapons around him, this guy seems to always put up points when it comes to in-division rivals.
And Steelers-Ravens, to me, is more about experience. I think Big Ben is going to be a challenge for him this year. You got a guy that's won multiple Super Bowls for the Steelers. Even though he's lost some of his weapons, he always finds a way to make it work with the guys he does have. They're going to be passing the ball all over the lot, and the Ravens aren't going to be able to answer back. I think the Steelers might be the kryptonite a little bit for the Ravens this year. We have Week 5 as a loss. We have Bengals as a win. We'll move on. We'll talk about the Seahawks here really quick before we move on to the bye week. Again, we talked about this game before in the Seahawks matchup. But these are two teams that want to do the same thing. They want to run the ball and they want to play good defense. The difference here is the quarterback.
Absolutely.
You've got Russell Wilson for Seattle, and then on the reverse, you have Lamar Jackson, who's still trying to learn how to throw the football at an NFL level.
And you know, everyone's going to sit there and point this might be an Earl Thomas revenge game. But guess what Russell Wilson doesn't do over and over? That's turn the ball over. I mean, Russell Wilson, again, like I'll say over and over again, if he played in a different system, we're talking about a top 3 quarterback in the NFL.
Yeah, it's too bad he wasn't drafted by the Colts, right?
Exactly. He plays. No,
it's not. I mean, you look at that team they put around Andrew Luck. It's not. But continue.
Okay.
You're right.
My point is this guy's very accurate.
Too bad the Chiefs didn't draft him. How about that?
Yeah, 5 years ago, won a couple Super Bowls. I'm down for that. Well, 1 Super Bowl. But anyways, it's just the Ravens. As much as that team, you could sit there and say is more complete than the Seahawks are. When you throw a Russell Wilson aspect into it, that team just becomes so much better than what the Ravens have. It just does.
I agree. The question to me is, are the Seahawks going to be able to keep up on defense? Because that's the way the Ravens win this game, is they're able to assert themselves on the offensive line. They're able to run the ball a little bit, and we see the Ravens kind of put up another win because they're able to bully a team that's lost too many defensive pieces. Maybe it's an Earl Thomas interception that turns this game here. This one's going to be close, but I got to go Seahawks first for the quarterback. If you don't make mistakes, typically you're the team who wins. And if I had to gamble on someone making a mistake, I'd say it's Lamar Jackson before Russell Wilson. That's a pretty safe bet, right?
I think it's a great bet.
Week 9. Obviously, they had the Week 8 bye. Not bad. You're almost to the middle of the season.
Before we move on, Tree says that is a win.
It could be.
It
could be. Maybe Mark Ingram absolutely just eats the Seattle defense alive.
But you're sitting there
they
talking
have
about
Bobby
another
Wagner.
head coach that puts a great defense together in Pete Carroll.
They were another team that we pointed to and said, with this defense losing all these pieces, they're going to be bad in 2018. They figured it out, right? They still got Bobby Wagner. They still have KJ Wright. They now have Shaquem Griffin that's going to help out on this defense. Even though I don't see the guys in the defensive line making that big of an impact, they have great linebackers who are going to take away the run. If they take away the run, Sharif, you've already admitted it. You don't want to see Lamar Jackson throw the ball 28 times a game, right?
Right.
I think that's what it's going to take to beat a team like the Seahawks. You're going to have to throw the ball a little bit when you have these linebackers that are that good at taking away the run. So I think at this point it's going to be difficult for Ingram to run all over him, like you said. I think this is going to be more about the Seahawks running, or the Ravens passing game against the Seahawks secondary.
Absolutely. And at week 8, they get a bye, and it seems like everyone is getting a bye before they face the Super Bowl champions New England Patriots.
You mean for the first time in 100 years the Patriots have a bad schedule?
No.
Because they're getting a bunch of teams rested and prepping for them?
No, they still have the weakest division in the NFL.
Yeah, that's true. Another fascinating point, not to get off topic. Tom Brady, 40 years old, has 3 quarterbacks in their sophomore year that he's playing against in his division. Who's winning that one?
Tom Brady?
we'll talk about that when the Patriots come up. But, yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, it doesn't matter about this game. To the Patriots, it's great if you win. You're going on the road to Baltimore. You're playing a tough defense. You're playing a great running game. All you want to do is get out of this healthy, right? It's early enough in the season. The Patriots probably aren't totally on fire at this point. They have a bad front seven, in my opinion. I think Dante Hightower might be hurt by this point, and we're seeing the Ravens assert themselves. Sharif was saying he wants to see them assert themselves against the Seahawks. They're going to assert themselves against the Patriots. They're going to get all over this front seven. This is the Mark Ingram game I think Sharif was talking about the week before.
And I'm right with Sharif. I think that the Baltimore Ravens are built to beat a team like New England. They could sit there and put the rock on the ground, keep it on the ground, keep Tom Brady on the side, and then when he has to sit there and force the ball, the best secondary in the NFL with Earl Thomas leading it and Jimmy Smith covering their best receiver, this is a scenario where you're going to see the ball being turned over and put back into the hands of the Baltimore Ravens offense. This is a win for the Ravens. That's how we see it.
I don't think it's going to be turnovers. I think you'll frustrate Tom Brady. Maybe you hit him a couple times. Maybe that's all it takes.
What happened when they played
They're
the
not turning
Steelers
over.
or the Titans last year?
Well, we didn't turn it over. We had no interceptions on them, I don't think. It's just we played good defense, and then our guys were more. It was our Super Bowl, and to them it was week 8 or whatever it was, week 12. I think that's going to be the case here too. The Patriots are going to be going into this saying we're on to Baltimore, and Baltimore is going to be saying we're beating the best team in the league, and we're doing it this time. It matters more to Baltimore. I think the running attack is going to be all over this Patriots front seven, which I think is still terrible. Yet somehow they managed to win a Super Bowl with them. This is how you beat the Patriots. You ground and pound. And I think the Ravens have the defense to stop the Patriots' best players who are in the backfield. I mean, you have Tom Brady in the backfield, and then you got those running backs like Sony Michel and James White that are the best players in this Patriot offense right now. The Ravens are set up to beat a team like the Patriots. I think they're going to in Week 9. We're with you, Sharif.
Week 10, they find themselves in Cincinnati playing the Bengals. I don't want to harp too much on this game. We all kind of know where the Bengals sit. Is A.J. Green healthy? Is Andy Dalton healthy? Has Joe Mixon found enough holes against this rebuilding offensive line?
The nicest thing I can say about the Bengals is they beat the Ravens once last year. And It was Joe Flacco.
Does this team this year have enough to beat a Ravens team?
Yeah, on offense. Early in the season. Maybe we see something kind of like last year where the defense steps up its game because it's in division. Are they going to? No. But do they have something? Do they have enough to do it? I got to say, yeah, they've done it already. The roster hasn't significantly changed, in my opinion. I don't think the Bengals have made a ton of big moves except for, these guys coming back healthy. They could beat the Ravens. If the Ravens are going to make the playoffs, they can't let the Bengals beat them. To me, this is a must-win game. I think even on the road, probably by now you're seeing a couple injuries. Maybe A.J. Green, maybe Andy Dalton. I think the Ravens win this game too.
The next 4 weeks are one of the most toughest weeks for this Ravens team. And I get what Sharif's going to say. You're going to sit there and look at these teams and go, some of these teams aren't even that good. But when you look at week 11, where Texans come into Baltimore. Week 12, when you find yourself in L.A.
The Texans, what do you mean not that good? The Texans won 10 games last year.
Hold on. When you go to Week 12 and you find yourself in L.A., Week 13, you find yourself in San Francisco against the 49ers, or 49ers come into town, and then you find yourself in Buffalo in Week 14. All of these teams that I just listed off are exactly what the Ravens don't want to face late in the season.
Yep.
And I'll tell you why. The Texans have a great defense. There's no doubt about it. This team seems to always be able to be...
They got a couple good players on that defense, but they're getting old. They're slowing down. But what do the Texans have? A good front seven. I'll give you that. Their secondary, trash.
Okay.
Especially since Boye left. Their secondary, garbage.
What do the Ravens not do very well?
Throw the ball. And that's where you have me. Okay? That's where I agree with you. But to sit there and say the Texans are, watch out for this defense. The Rams, watch out for this defense.
I didn't say that.
You said they had good defenses. I disagree. The Texans suck on defense.
And Sharif, you must have read our minds because that is the only win we have in this 4-game stretch is they beat the 49ers. That's it.
It's tough.
It's
going to be a tough stretch.
1-3 stretch during these 4 weeks.
And I know what you're saying. What? We can beat the Bills, but what did they do well? What did the Bills do incredibly well? Stop the running attack. They've just drafted Ed Oliver to help out on that defensive line. They want to ground and pound on you just like that. This is going to be one of the ugliest games of the NFL season. You're going to see the Ravens play great defense. You're going to see the Bills play great defense. But the Bills are going to come out on top because they're able to throw a little bit more, and they dedicated themselves a little bit more to the passing game, bringing in guys like Cole Beasley and, spoiler alert, John Brown, who just played for the Ravens. Not really a spoiler, but more of a revenge game. The Bills are going to be ready for a team like the Ravens that's going to want to run the ball 60, 70, 80 times a game.
All right, I want to get back to this Texans game just because Sharif's saying that they're going to beat them. Listen, they can stop the run. That's exactly what you're trying to do. What can the Texans do? They can put up points because they have Watson and Hopkins. This team is exactly what you don't want to face. If they're able to stop what you do best and they can do better what you want to try to do, you're going to lose that game.
The most interesting matchup here is Earl Thomas versus DeAndre Hopkins because you know Earl Thomas is going to be the second guy. He's going to be the guy over the top because you're going to double DeAndre Hopkins. The problem is everybody doubles DeAndre Hopkins and the guy doesn't drop any balls.
I am not a hater.
Sharif, the biggest question with Houston is how are you going to stop DeAndre Hopkins? You have maybe the best guy in the NFL to do it, but I don't think you can. Nobody stops this guy.
No one can stop them.
Exactly. Yeah. The best case scenario for the Baltimore Ravens is they get after Deshaun Watson, they embarrass this Houston offensive line, just like has happened in years past, and they put a bunch of hits on this young quarterback and make him make some mistakes.
But you have to outscore them.
But they've tried to get better, and what's worse is the Ravens have gotten worse. You have to sit there and admit that Parnell McPhee and Shane Ray are not the same guys that Zadarius Smith and Terrell Suggs are. I mean, they're just not. They're not going to get the same pressure. They're not going to have the same quickness off the edge to get after the quarterback that some of these other guys did. Houston wins this game for that change alone. It's gonna be ugly. I think DeAndre Hopkins may have 180 yards receiving because there's no stopping this guy, and every pass play in Houston seems to go to him. But I think Houston wins this game. I really do. I think the Ravens are going to have to do something special on the offensive side of the ball to beat a defense that's built to stop the run and is very good in the front seven.
Yep.
That's it? Just yep?
No, I mean, I completely...
Did I cover it all?
I think you nailed it. I don't want to harp on a lot of these games just because of time issues, but when you look at Week 12, you go to L.A., you play the Rams. Do the Rams take a step back? You're talking about one of the high-flying offenses in the league. I get your defense was really good last year, but can they keep sustaining that kind of
that intensity?
That intensity. I mean, can they do it? No, I don't believe it. And you look at the 49ers, I think this is a team you could beat. And the reason I sit there and think that is because their defense is weak. If you could control what you're doing offensively and you're overpowering their defense, this is your best option because they sit there and they took Nick Bosa. They took D Ford. These are guys that come after the quarterback. Guess what? Your quarterback can move. This guy ran for 143 attempts because he can move. So when you're sitting there putting these guys in there that are trying to go after your quarterback, this is not what you want to face. The 49ers lose this game. But when you sit there and face the Bills, this is almost like a mirror image of what you're trying to do. But right now, on paper, before this season starts, this Bills roster is better. I hate to admit, man, it is a better roster than what the Ravens have.
Finally, one more point here. Even though Sharif admitted they probably lose in Buffalo, he says Humphrey, Smith are the best corners, and Thomas and Jefferson in the back. It's a good secondary, but when you're playing a team like the Rams, and this will be my final point before we move on to the next kind of group, is when you're playing a team like the Rams, 4 good players in the secondary isn't enough in today's NFL. You need 5 and 6 of them, and you need a pass rush to help those guys out. I think the Rams are going to have too much for them when it comes to guys like Cooper Kupp, when it comes to Robert Woods, who nobody has respected and yet seems to be a baller. Yeah, even Gerald Everett. They're going to find a way to get the ball to the open man, and I think the Ravens, regardless of how good that first 4 in the secondary is, they're going to struggle against a team like the Rams that have 4, 5, 6 weapons that it doesn't matter who catches the ball, but somebody's going to.
Yeah.
And I think that's just what it's going to come down to. As to running the ball, they have Aaron Donald up front. I think the Ravens will have a little bit of success in the running game, but not enough to beat a team and keep up with a team like the Rams. It might be a trip-up game for the Rams, but on the road, out there in L.A., you literally have to cross the country going from Baltimore to L.A. It's a tough game for the Ravens.
To end their season, they sit there and face the Jets at home at Week 15. They go on the road to Cleveland against Baltimore, against the Browns, and then they come home to face the Steelers. And guys, let me be, before I even move it, they are 8-6 going in, they are 7-6 before they go into Week 15. This is a team on the outskirts looking to try to get a wild card at this point in time. And guys, we did not see this coming until we sat there and looked at this schedule that I think is too tough for the Ravens.
And even though the Jets want to run the ball a little bit, even though they have Sam Darnold, who it's going to be a little bit better passing the ball, I still think the Ravens are going to be too much for him. This defense is going to get after him. They're going to slow down Le'Veon Bell, and then it's going to be on the guys like Robbie Anderson and Quincy Enunwa to win these games.
We're going to see the best.
This is where that secondary steps up.
Comes up, yeah.
I absolutely agree. I think the Jets are 100% the underdog in this, and for a good reason. I think we'll see some good passes out of Sam Darnold, but at the end of the day, we're going to be pointing at this game kind of like we pointed at the Texans game last year's. Man, the Ravens won that game. They were all over Sam Darnold, but he made some good throws. But guess who won? Yeah. The Ravens. And I think this is probably maybe even the last win for the Ravens for the season.
Yeah, you're looking at Week 16. You guys are 8-6. You need to get wins to get in the playoffs. But the two teams that you're facing are also doing the exact same scenario. I think this is a very good possibility that this is the division that puts three teams into the AFC playoffs.
Don't count my AFC South out just yet.
And
you have the Chargers out there in the West.
It's a good possibility.
And don't sleep on the Dolphins, Drew. The East powerhouse.
Going to Cleveland to face these Browns at this point in time, we fully believe that Freddie Kitchens has this offense going full blown. Odell Beckham Jr. I'm blanking on the other wide receiver.
Landry.
Landry have all gotten to understand what Baker Mayfield wants to do on the field. If you are not open, you are not going to be receiving this ball. Look, Kareem Hunt is a stud outside the backfield, catching the ball, and when he can break that first or second tackle. As a Chiefs fan, I am sad to see that guy go, but he's an idiot, but he's still a great player in the NFL. This is a team that can beat the Ravens.
Week 16, the Browns have had a long time. Maybe things went bad for the Browns. Let's look optimistically here for the Ravens. Maybe things didn't shake out in the first couple weeks here for the Browns, and then they kind of gave up because they have all these big personalities. Maybe that's your best chance of beating them here, but a team with Kareem Hunt back, a team with an offensive line like that, and receivers like that, the Ravens, even with as great as that offensive line is, or as that defense is even, I should say, they're going to struggle against the Browns on the offensive side of the ball because the Browns have so many weapons at this point. You're going to have a hard time getting after Baker Mayfield and making that big of an impact. We see that as a loss. The Steelers, it's the old enemy. And what do you have? A young quarterback in his sophomore year, probably facing a sophomore slump, that struggles to throw the ball a little bit, which is the best way to attack the Steelers, going up against Ben Roethlisberger, who doesn't make a lot of mistakes in the clutch. I got to put it down as another loss. And Drew kind of talked me into this one here. I think the Steelers are going to be the team that might be the Baltimore Ravens kryptonite this year because of experience, because of everything else they have going on in the rest of that team. In division, there's no better rivalry maybe. You could say Green Bay and Chicago. Beyond, there's not many other rivalries better than Pittsburgh and Baltimore, right?
And Sharif's saying, hey, right off the bat, listen, man, if this was swapped and they sat there and faced the Steelers at home.
This is at home week 17.
I'm sorry. If they would have faced them and it still makes sense. They would have faced them home in week 5, and they had a chance to beat this team and know what it feels like to beat a team that has a lot of times have beaten you guys over and over. When it comes to clutch and you find yourself facing the Steelers, regardless if it's at home or away, I think you guys can beat them. But the fact is, you took a loss, and it's been too far away. Week 5 to week 17, that's 12 weeks. That's a season, man. You're going to sit there and tell me that Ben Roethlisberger is not going to throw the ball all over your best secondary in the NFL? Your team needs to be able to find a way to put up points against the Steelers defense. And I get that's weak, but one thing you guys cannot do is throw the ball. Unless somehow by week 17 you just are lighting the world on fire, I don't see it, man. I honestly don't.
And it might be a win and get in scenario where both of these teams come into this one needing it, but I got to point back to Lamar Jackson again. I think that's going to be the biggest issue. Even though he won all those games as a rookie, I don't necessarily see him dominating this year. You're going to need a dominant quarterback performance in Week 17 against a team that's as storied and as experienced as the Steelers are. I got to go loss here. We have the Baltimore Ravens going 8-8 in 2019. We said it last year, Drew. We were a couple games off. But this schedule, having won the division, I think might be the difference here. If you finish second or third in the division, this might be a 10-6 season like Sharif's talking about.
Yeah.
Also, Ian says final score, Pittsburgh 27, Baltimore 13. I actually think it'll be something more like 34 to 24 or something like that. But
Yeah.
I think the Steelers on the road in Week 17, but they're clutch. They have a great quarterback like Ben Roethlisberger sticking around, a Hall of Famer. They probably need it, and they're probably embarrassed after that 7-9 finish last year. It's going to be tough for the Ravens. It's going to be tough, man.
Hey, Freddie, no hate on the Broncos, but I think with your schedule when you're facing the Chiefs and the Chargers and that tough schedule that they have for them, it might be a real tough season. You're going to need a lot out of Joe Flacco and a lot out of a defense that's going to be revamping itself with Vic as your head coach. We weren't extremely high on them, man. We had them 5-11. It's not because we don't think that this...
I wasn't going to spoil it, Freddie. If you want to hear about the Broncos, we did an entire episode on them. Go click on our video tab, and then click on episode 157. We go in depth with their entire season. You can see what we think about it. We both think they have some growing to do.
Yeah, it's not a knock on him, and I didn't mean to spoil it.
It is a knock because he's a Chiefs fan, but
it isn't a knock on him. It isn't. I don't care. It's not a knock on him. I still think this is one of the best pass rushing defenses in the league. I think that they have a lot of potential in the run game offensively, but I don't think Joe Flacco fixes it. I think Joe Flacco alone creates wins, but I don't think he fixes what they're trying to do over there in Denver.
See that? I made Drew talk nice about the Broncos. Yeah, Freddie, if you want to hear more, again, it's 157. Click on our video tab. You can go in there. We go in depth on the entire season for the Denver Broncos. At least for the Ravens. Before we round this out here, Drew, is there anything that gets them into the playoffs? Because we think 8-8 probably isn't going to be good enough in the AFC. There are enough good teams in the AFC where 8-8 probably doesn't get the job done. What can they do to turn a couple of these losses that we have into wins?
Lamar Jackson's going to need to learn to throw the ball deep and accurately.
I would just settle for accuracy. I don't care if he's Alex Smith and you can only get 25 to 30 yards out of this guy. If you can hit that target a little bit, that's what I want to see. I don't need deep passes. I'd like to see deep passes because you push that defense back, and it's not a question of strength. It's a question of accuracy and making the defenses commit to backing up and guarding these receivers.
Yeah.
But I want to see accuracy within the first 20 to 25 yards because if you can get that, I think teams will back off enough that this running game will thrive. Right now, I don't see it. I didn't see it last year. Just like you said with your QBR, I think a lot of this comes down to can you ask him to make more difficult throws and keep that QBR high?
Right. Austin said, love the show. Look forward to it 3 times a week, man. We appreciate all the love and support you give us. Ian says, you guys rock, drink up, and here we go, Steelers. Hey, guys, remember, thank you all for the likes, the shares, the comments. This is the reason why we do it 3 times a week. And, make your friends join. Make your family join because if it pushes them. Exactly. Because if it becomes more, guess what? We're doing it 5 times a week. The reason is we have to work. We have to make a living for our families. But we love doing this. This is what we want to do. This is our passion. This is what we're excited about. I get excited every time that this gets a chance to come up and I get to talk sports with you guys. Even though I can't stand this guy, we're still here doing it every week in and week out.
But we're friends, right? I mean, he doesn't like me, but we're friends. No, absolutely. You're right. We do it because we have a good time with you guys. It's absolutely been great. Thank you for all the comments. Drew's going to give some special thanks here. Just final thoughts. Happy summer. Obviously, today is the equinox in the summer?
Or is it longest,
no. Equinox or solstice. I don't remember which.
Summer solstice.
I don't do enough of the crystal stuff to know. But thank you guys for tuning in. We know it's on Friday. We know it's in the summer. You have so many other things that you could be doing. We appreciate each and every one of your minutes. And it's so much better with you guys.
Last comment.
As to Freddie, last comment, he says, do we think the Bengals will do good? Spoiler alert, no. We haven't gone through everything. We want to break the team down entirely. We think they're going to struggle in 2019.
No doubt about it.
We were upset with their draft. We were upset with their free agency. We've been upset with them for years with Marvin Lewis. But I like Andy Dalton. I like the passing game they put together when he was healthy. That's something to look forward to with the Bengals.
Absolutely. Guys, thank you again for all the comments. Real quick thanks out there to Michael, Dylan, Devin, Ian, Will, Sean, Sharif, Austin, Freddie. You guys are all awesome. Thank you so much for joining us this evening.
And we'll be back on Monday. We're going to be back talking about football. I don't know what team it is, but we'll let you know in a post beforehand. We're also going to be talking about everything else going on in the world of sports. We love hearing from you. Your comments and everything are why we do this, because we love talking sports with everybody. So for Sports Around the Bar, I am Jakey Bartender. This is Drew, and we will catch you guys on Monday.
See ya.